What's up, everyone? This is another episode of Off the Post. I'm Courtney, still filling in for the Red Cap for a little while again today. Below, we have some familiar faces, although we haven't had a show for a while, so, we'll just check in. We have Jen and Danielle. Jen, what's been going on, since we've last all assembled?
Same thing I think that was going on the last time we assembled. Work and school. That's pretty much my life.
That works. Danielle, anything exciting going on lately?
Mostly work. Got to go meet Lucy Lawless in Texas last weekend, so that was A++.
I love Lucy Lawless, so that's amazing. That could be like a whole nother off the post, off topic show about Lucy Lawless, but
I'm done.
Anyways, we're gonna get right into it. Not too much to cover today, but we do want to make sure we get everything in there. If anyone's out there watching and want to chat with us, hashtag WoSoTalk on Twitter. I'll be checking it throughout the show. Let us know your thoughts and opinions, and we'll get right going. So obviously, U.S. Women's National Team played Brazil on Wednesday. Bit of a late game for those of us not on the West Coast, but meddled through. We'll go with Jen first. What were some of your expectations going into the game, and were they met or not?
I thought it was going to be a close game. I didn't necessarily know how close, but I knew it wasn't really going to be a blowout. Brazil was, I think, a little bit pissed off at their performance during the World Cup, so I figured that they were going to kind of come back a little bit, just because they had something to prove. I did expect us to play a lot better. I thought we looked really messy. Granted, we have a couple of new call-ups. The players are a little bit rusty, but still, that was very rough to watch for me. I don't think I was expecting that. So, close game. That one was met. I did expect better playing from us, though. So.
All right, and Danielle, what were your thoughts on the lineups and the substitutions?
I thought the lineup was pretty safe, especially against Brazil. Obviously, Boxy was going to be captain since it was her last game. So it was a safe lineup. I did like the subs. I loved getting Sam Mewis out there because I like Sam a lot. I think she can be a star, and she made an impact on the game. I liked Hinkle getting her first cap, so I was a big fan of the substitutions. But like I said, the lineup was a pretty safe lineup to be expected.
Yeah, I agree. I think, a lot of us thought it was going to be a really close, not a really close game, but a closer game since Brazil technically, in general, is higher competition than the teams that the U.S. have faced in recent weeks and months on the Victory Tour so far. They were the first real challenge, I would say. And then, the addition, I think Jen said, of, not performing well in the World Cup, probably having that kind of chip on their shoulder. Was definitely expecting them to come out really hard. And I also would agree with, I thought, it'll be a harder fought match, but, we have great talent on our team. We have great players. And, yeah, they haven't really, necessarily, they had a probably pretty shortish camp, I think, maybe, but still was expecting it to be a better game than it actually was. I think overall the game itself was kind of not overly exciting, and then, with our players playing so poorly for the most part overall, I'd say was definitely a little bit surprising. And I agree with the substitutions. There's any people I would have liked to see. I would have liked, obviously, anytime Allie Krieger's not in the lineup, I'm sad. We're missing a lot of players, and I know, Holidays, obviously her last game is Sunday, so, I definitely will see her then. You always want to see, O'Reilly and stuff like that get in there, but I definitely, with her, Ellis calling up newer players, was definitely excited to get them into the game. As that flash person, I was really excited to see Mewis and Hinkle in. I think they're both extremely talented players, but sometimes being on a team that's had such struggles as the Flash, you don't really get to see that or really get to anyone else gets to really notice how good they really are. And they both came in and definitely had an impact on the game. So I was super psyched to see that. I will ask this question to both of you. We'll go with Danielle first. What were some of the players who stood out for you, and what were some players who maybe disappointed you?
Kind of going along with what I said for the last question, I thought Sam Mewis stood out when she got into the game. She almost got the goal. Alex held it just a little too long. But as soon as that substitution, the game kind of turned around and we started getting chances. Sam Mewis is a player, I think, who's never really got a fair shake at the national team. It seems like every cap she's been in has been in when we're going to lose. I think her first cap was that Algarve game that we lost. So getting her in and seeing her make an impact was great. When it comes to players that disappointed me, Pino. I thought she was just it was not a great game for her. I was really disappointed. Pino's one of those players that when she's on, she's great, but then when she gets frustrated, everything, her whole on-field performance just suffers, and she was really frustrating to watch on Wednesday for me.
Jen, I see you nodding along with that. I'll ask you the same thing, though. Do you have anything to add to that? Were there any maybe other different players that stood out for you or disappointed you, or what were some of your thoughts on individual performances?
Well, I agree with Danielle completely about Pino. I was kind of shocked to see that, especially playing in Seattle. I would have expected her to maybe have some more of her usual gusto, and she just didn't. She was very lackluster and very, very inconsistent, which was really disappointing. But for me, I'm actually going to throw Hinkle out there as someone who stood out in a positive way. She kind of got thrown to the wolves. I mean, she was defending Marta in her first cap ever. So she just kind of got chucked out there, and Jill Ellis was like, here you go, have at it, have fun. And she did really well. So, she defended well, and she also started to push the ball forward a little bit. So it was nice to see her kind of overcome that first, I guess, initial set of nerves that she may have had and really start to break out a little bit. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, I ditto to all of that. Hinkle definitely looked really nervous when she got out there. She kind of had that, wide eye, oh, crap, I'm going out to play on the national team. And, she's someone who hadn't even really, Sam Mewis had been in the picture before, although briefly had had some time with the team, had caps. But Hinkle, to kind of your first camp, with the senior team, and we're going to throw you right in there. And, oh, by the way, hey, welcome, you're coming into a game while they were down at the time, but, still it was a close game. And, hey, you're going to be defending Marta, have fun. She definitely kind of came in oh, gosh, but she kind of had that look on her face as she entered the game, but did an outstanding job, had a lot of good ball moving down the side, down the flank too. She had a good interception at one point and was just awesome. And I won't go on. I agree with what was said about Pino, but I'm actually surprised that she stayed in the game. To be quite honest, I was really just expecting okay, great, horrible performance. Why? So I was really surprised with that. I don't know that we will see her Sunday. Or if we do, I don't know that we'd see her for an extended period of time. But just a really off game for her. I know sometimes she's inconsistent. She's either really, really good and on it, or she's just not. But I am surprised that Ellis left her in, considering just the poor quality from the start of the game kind of throughout that was going on. But they ended up working out. They got the tie, so it's all good. Jen, any first half moments that stood out to you, or anything about the first half that you would like to comment on?
Aside from the stuff that was already mentioned, I think for me the first half was kind of like watching a Spirit game. It was kind of driven by Crystal Dunn, in my opinion. A lot of the chances that we did have came from crosses from her, or her moving the ball forward, or there was a whole lot of Crystal Dunn up there in the first half, and it was unfortunate that we got some offsides calls and some other things happened, but it was definitely, for me, Crystal Dunn was definitely the player of the first half. Alex Morgan came in and almost got that header in off of a cross from her, and that would have been a fantastic header had it gone in. I thought that was maybe the best attempt she had all game. Other than that, I mean, the first half for us was kind of dull. We were on the defensive most of the time, which was kind of upsetting, but it happens when Brazil scores a goal on us in the 3rd minute of the game. So the fact that Alex Morgan and Crystal Dunn could still play up top and still try to create those chances, I think, says a lot about the resilience of those types of players.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely was I guess it's an awkward first half. Anything from the defense and even goalkeeping on that goal by Brazil was kind of like, it wasn't necessarily a crazy wild shot that I don't know. It seemed like it probably could have been stopped. I'm not a goalkeeper, so I don't really know. But it wasn't anything super fancy that was like, oh my God, what a great goal. It was kind of like, oh, Brazil scored. Hey, that happened. And I just think defense was kind of off, and I do think some of those offside calls were highly questionable. But I think early in the game, Alex Morgan, we saw her getting a little frustrated at those missed chances and offside calls just because some of them are questionable, and she's been really trying to get her groove back. But yeah, and then the set pieces and corner kicks were horrible in the first half, so it just kind of was a messy half, and you kind of thought second half oh God, please come out and do something different. Speaking of second half, Danielle, what were your thoughts on the second half?
I think you could split the second half into two. I think that the first part of it was, for me, as frustrating as the first half. But then the end got really exciting. I think there was, whether it was substitutions or, whatever caused it, I think that we just got that more energy at the end, which was great. Kling's run was awesome to set up that Carly goal. For me, sometimes Kling can be on or off, but that was great. But yeah, I think those substitutions came on, and I think it really just changed the tone of the game. I kind of wish that Jill realized she had more substitutions and she could have used them earlier, but it is a friendly, so whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I think I expected them to come out of halftime, and I was just like, all right, so, Jill had some sort of pep talk, they're going to get their crap together, we're going to see a different team second half, we're going to get it going. All that. I was just kind of had the expectation it was going to be noticeably better from the second half, and then, much through that second half of, the early part of the second half, I was like, oh my God, this really hasn't gotten better.
Yeah.
Alex Morgan still, not able to find the back of the net, but she kept being aggressive on the ball, and I think that, as much as I have opinions on Alex Morgan, which I'm sure I'll share later when we start talking about Orlando stuff, but as much as I have opinions on her, I will give her credit for, sometimes we see Alex Morgan when she gets frustrated, she kind of shuts down and gets frustrated and makes more errors because she's just frustrated. But this game we saw Alex Morgan, who probably was frustrated but didn't let it get in her head and actually kept on the ball and kept making good runs and making the effort to get there instead of just kind of self-imploding. So that was a positive thing. But I do agree on the subs. I just remember as the time went on and I looked at the game clock and I was like, why have there been no more subs? It's a friendly. Get the subs. You have all the subs. You have so many subs. Do the thing with the subs. But yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's just because it was their Hinkle's first cap and Mewis's first shot back, and they were just really trying to prove themselves, or if they just kind of brought in a well, we haven't and our season ended fairly early. We didn't make playoffs. We haven't really been doing the soccer thing regularly. We didn't have prior victory tour matches like the national team did. I don't know if it was just that new energy of, oh, we're back playing soccer again. We haven't done this for a little while. We're excited. We're excited to be on the national team. But I think that kind of spread and infected to the whole team, which was definitely noticeable. And I mean, I agree with what you said, Danielle, about Kling again either being kind of on or off. Not the whole back line, which is hard for me to say because I like the back line, but they were all kind of off for the most part. There were some good defensive moves, but for the most part, I was just like, God, what is the back line doing? But that was a great, setup for Carly's goal by Kling, and Carly seems to be the person, when it was oh, we scored, and it was Carly Lloyd. I was oh, not surprised. If anyone's gonna pull them out of that, it would be Carly. I'm just gonna go to a comment we have real quick. Jen Hayes says, I agree Pino was abysmal and both Mewis and Hinkle were great. Thank you, Jen. Again, if you have any comments, #WoShoTalk. We'll read them on air. If you have any questions, we'll answer them. We'll share your thoughts and all that jazz. So talk to us. Moving on. Does anyone have any other overall thoughts on the match? We'll go to Jen first. Anything just kind of to wrap up?
I kind of have two.
Sure.
And it's on the note of substitutions, and it came to me while we were sitting here talking about them. The one that I thought was weird was pulling Boxy out as early as she was pulled out. That was odd. That was really, really odd. I didn't expect any substitutions until the second half, following the pattern that Jill Ellis has followed. And I don't know if Boxy had just had enough and needed to step off or what was going on there, but that was weird to me. Second note, I love Tobin. I do. I love her to death, but I love her as a flank player. To me, she's not really filling that central defensive midfielder role. When I see her, she's most consistent and she's most tactically brilliant on the flank, where she can utilize her speed and utilize her skill. So I was a little bit disappointed, I think, to not see someone I thought would be good filling that role in there, which would have been Christine Nairn, who just got this last call up. I think I would have liked to see her maybe experimented a little bit in that central defensive midfielder role. Because the thing with Lauren Holiday that we're going to miss the most, I think, is that she plays that defensive spot so well, but she's also a really good playmaker. And that's something we did see a lot from Nairn in Washington. So I would have liked to see that a little bit, maybe. Hopefully in Orlando. But yeah, that's my wrap up.
I will agree that one thing that was definitely noticeable with the absence of Lauren Holiday playing at all was just how much that team is going to miss Lauren Holiday and the role that she played and how well she played it.
Yeah.
In the sense that, Ellis has been trying Tobin there for a while, like in the last couple of games that she's played and stuff like that. At first, it's kind of like, oh, give her more time there, but I think as Ellis gives her more time there, it's kind of becoming, it's not clicking still, so I think she is going to eventually have to play with other options there because I don't, and it's nothing against Tobin, I just think that, like, it might, they have another couple months before qualifiers, but they don't necessarily have, like, all the time in the world to keep having to get, to figure that out, I guess. Whether it be having Tobin adjust more or having somebody else try that spot. They don't really have, they have quite a bit of time, but, the fact that they don't have anything in November scheduled, and they do have those 4 games in December, but those are all so close together with traveling, it'll be interesting to see what happens in those, and we'll talk about those at a later show, I'm sure, but, she doesn't have too much time to figure it out, of actual time that the team's going to be together, so hopefully, that was definitely a noticeable thing, though, that we were not seeing, Lauren Holiday there, and it was like, oh, definitely missing someone in that spot. I agree. I was surprised that Box came out that early. I thought maybe like early second half they'll sub her off, but so maybe there was a reason there that we didn't know. But I was just like, well, already she's coming off. Okay, bye, Boxy. I think I was preparing for that to be emotional because I knew it was her last game, but I wasn't expecting so early in the game to have to be like, oh God, it's happening now. All the feelings, and I wasn't waiting for it till halftime. But no, I agree. Danielle, what were your overall thoughts on the game?
Well, to kind of go along with what both of you guys were saying with Lauren, her impact, I think set pieces were the same way. I don't think set pieces were great, and so we're really going to miss her for those as well. I'm just going to play off all of your guys' points. The Boxy the first half, because just like you, I knew it was going to be emotional, so give me halftime, give me time to oh God, she's going off now. I wasn't ready. Prepare me for that. So, no, overall, what you guys said, Tobin in that, it brought more questions for me going into qualifying in February than it answered for me. And again, it's a victory tour, so whatever, but yeah.
Right. Exactly. Makes sense. So moving on, that's that game, Game 1 versus Brazil. Yay. Second game is Sunday. I believe I saw it in I believe the actual game starts at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I saw things about pregame at 2:30. It's on Fox Sports 1, I believe, this game. So just some information for people who are like, when's the game at? So we'll go in. We'll ask the first question to Jen because you kind of already talked about some changes in lineup you'd want to see. But so what are your expectations going in to this game against Brazil?
I would definitely expect some lineup changes. I don't. If we see Pino at all, I don't think it's going to be for a full 90. I would expect, at least hope, that Ashlyn Harris would be between the posts for this one. We're going to see Choops. We're going to see Holiday. It's their last game. But outside of lineup, I think I would just expect to see, them realizing what maybe didn't work this past time and realizing, okay, we left 10 million defensive gaps throughout this entire game. We can't do that. They're going to take advantage of that again. Or, where they need to be pressing forward and where they need to be holding back and what sides of the field they can utilize for speed and who they can put there that has that speed. So I definitely expect to see quite a bit of changes. I think we learned a lot from this last Brazil game, so I expect to see a lot different for this one, and I think we'll probably come out on top for this one.
All right. Danielle, are there any changes that you'd like to see both in lineups and tactics in this upcoming match?
Well, I hope that more people get a shot. A lot of the new call-ups get a shot to play, just because I like getting game experience. It's great to get them out there. Basically, attack, I think when you have Lauren out there, I think it's going to be so much better. But I'll be honest, I can't think of that game that much because I'm not emotionally prepared for Sunday. So every time I try to think of Sunday, I don't even want to talk about it. It gets rough. So
Understandable.
That's a terrible answer, but yeah, I love Lauren.
I understand that. I get that. For me, I agree with a lot of what was said. I think I would like to see more either different new folk get to play, or if you're going to use the same new folk, them being subbed in earlier, because they came in so late and they were effective. But it was like, oh my God, imagine this sub, give them more playing time. They made such a difference. Do it. I agree with what you said about Ashlyn. I would hope that she's at least going to start, and nothing against Alyssa Nair, but I would hope that, I don't know, part of me wants to see her play a full game just because they've been switching goalkeepers at halftime throughout, but they didn't last game. I don't know if it was because of the closeness of the game or if it was because they were in Seattle and it was hope. But since they're going to be in Orlando, I would hope that if that was the reason, they would afford Ashlyn the same,
for sure,
I guess, I don't say courtesy, but the same just respect as a goalkeeper. She's their number 2 goalkeeper. For whatever reason, it'd be nice for her to get a full game if they're not going to switch, and who knows, maybe I just think that if that's, if that factored in to them keeping hope in the whole game where they were, and the fact that they're going to be in Orlando, I hope that would factor in, just because if you're not going to switch from, that's just my thought, but who knows. I at least hope that she starts, so since they are going to be in and around her hometown. So also, yeah, like I said, it's going to be, don't think I'm ready for that game Sunday either, but I definitely think you're going to see lots of changes in the lineup, and I hope that Jill uses her subs, and I think, like Jen said, hopefully that they learn. Hopefully we see that they've learned from what didn't work. There were a lot of things that didn't work on Wednesday, so hopefully they kind of learn from that. And I think that they're going to, not that they weren't taking Brazil seriously, because Brazil is such, they are a really good team, but I think that they're now prepared. They know, oh, Brazil got a goal on us super quick, and we're really tough to play, and we almost didn't equalize. We almost dropped our first game in 10 years at home or something like that.
100 matches.
Right. I think it was 2004 or something like that, the last time they lost at home or whatnot. So hopefully that this first game has kind of gotten them a look at things they need to change, and there's not a whole lot of time to do it, but I think we'll likely see changes, and obviously we're going to see Holiday and Klepny. Like I said, hopefully we see Harris also because it's they're playing in Orlando, but you never know how those things work. Anyway, so moving kind of same U.S. Women's National Team thought, but moving away from the game specific. What are let's looking forward. Danielle, what are some of your thoughts on the players who were recently called in, who we maybe either haven't seen for a while, or in the case of Sam Mewis, I think, and I can't remember if anyone else had been in recently.
Mondowski, I think.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the people who she chose to call in for these couple friendlies?
I really liked it a lot. I thought that it was a good mix. Well, when was the last time really we saw a player that plays internationally? We could talk for an hour about how the injustice that has been brought on to Lindsey Horan, who's such a talented player, but she plays overseas. We're not even going to look at her. So having a couple players that play overseas get called in was fantastic. I loved it because it's important. They're really good players. You got to see them. I loved Sonnet getting called. That's Sonnet. For Virginia, that was great because I think that we get so stuck in our older, whoever's always been there gets called up lineups. So to get college, if we didn't have college players, we wouldn't have Morgan Bryan on the team. It's great to look. I wish we did it more. I wish we looked at the youth more. So it was great seeing that. And it kind of showed me one thing that I think I kind of believe in that I'm not sure Jill Ellis does is I think you have to earn the Olympic spot. I don't think we have to make roster cuts. I think these players have to earn their spots. And so people are like, oh, why are we calling up if they're not going to, we have to already cut players. No, they need to be fighting for those roster spots. Just because you've been on the team for 10 years doesn't mean you're guaranteed. So getting new blood, it brings a competition. It really makes people fight for it. So I loved the lineups, the call-ups.
Great. And Jen, who do you think out of those players you think were going to be players to watch for specifically to make an impact if they are given the opportunity?
Well, I think we saw two of them already. I think Sam Mewis and Jay Hinkle, I think they both already made a huge impact. So I think that speaks volumes about the call-ups that Jill Ellis and co made. I'm a little biased because I love the connection between Christine Nairn and Crystal Dunn. So for me, if we can get the two of them on the field together, something's going to happen. Christine Nairn, again, is the playmaker for me, and you just can't not be a fan of women's soccer and not like Crystal Dunn. So I think for me that's huge. Honestly, I can't really say there's any players I don't think will make an impact. I think at this point they're all fresh. They're all looking to get out there and make a difference. So I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to find ways to fit in there and bring a new spark to the team that we haven't seen in a while, particularly with those international players, just because they're so used to playing, different styles and with different tactics and with players of different tactical ability than maybe what we have in the NWSL. So I think it'll definitely be interesting to watch and watch them grow with the team and fill roles that we didn't even necessarily know we needed to fill.
Yeah, I agree with both of what you said. I think the players mentioned are all have potential to make a really good impact and continue to make an impact. And I think it's great that we're seeing people called in. Interesting with her and also who I guess potentially, she is playing overseas now, but there's talk of her potentially coming to NWSL, which we're going to talk about in a second because rights to her have been involved in this big old trade thing happening with the Orlando Pride. So that's interesting. I don't know if this recent call-in might affect, the decision whether she stays overseas or not, if she can stay overseas and still get called in, if that's going to be a thing in the future, will she stay overseas or, is, following the model of you have to come here to play, it'll be interesting see that decision. But I have to think it's at least a possibility, the fact that we're discussing her rights in trade value. So that's certainly interesting. But I agree with what you said, Danielle. Also, I do think so many people are like, we have to make cuts, we have to make cuts, we have to make cuts. But I do agree that people have to earn. You shouldn't just assume like, oh, I was on the World Cup roster, I'm going to be on the Olympic roster. I do agree like people should have to. It's more about who's going to make the team instead of who we're going to cut. So I think that was a really good point. We're going to just take a couple minutes now. We're going to switch over. We'll probably talk more about this on Monday just because we'll have like the unprotected and protected list for the expansion draft and all of that. But, I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it because there is big happenings, that occurred in the league this week. But we'll start with Danielle. What do you think? Obviously, we saw the Orlando Pride becoming the 10th team in the NWSL for this upcoming season. What do you think the general impact that this team's going to have on the league?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's great on one end because it balances the scheduling, which is great. It shows that we finally hit a year 4 and we're adding teams, which is great. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of how they said, well, we'll join only if we get Alex Morgan. Stuff like attitudes like that annoys me. The entitlement, I guess. So I'm very conflicted when it comes to the Pride. But I am excited because it means I get to see Tom Sermanni coach again. So, I mean, it's hard. I'm so conflicted when it comes to the Pride.
Jen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Danielle on that whole business about them saying, well, we'll join this year if we get Alex Morgan. If not, y'all are going to have to wait until next year for us to join. And, like, that to me was kind of not okay. But I think, I lived about an hour south of Orlando, so I was there before Orlando City was even an MLS team. So I saw the following that the sport had in Orlando even then, which was huge, and it's only grown since they become MLS. And that community, the entire Orlando City community, has just welcomed the Orlando Pride with open arms. So to me, that's huge. The fact that it's basically, and I hate to say it like this, so I apologize in advance, but it's basically like a second Portland, where you have the Timbers that come in and kind of back up the Thorns and embrace the Thorns, and they have like this partnership going on. I'm seeing that between the city and the Pride, so that's definitely a good thing, I think, to be witnessing this early. That the team is definitely going to have a market where it's at, and it is the closest team for a lot of people. I mean, it's the only really southeastern team right now. So I think it's going to be huge, and I think we'll see that on Sunday when season tickets go on sale for the general public. I hope that they do well. But yeah, I'm very conflicted, I think, right now about the organization too. Just the fact that Danielle used the right word, I think, like the sense of entitlement. But, good for Tom Sermanni. And I do hope that they do well, not against my Washington Spirit, but just for the league in general. So.
Yeah, I agree with a lot that was said. I mean, I'm very happy to see Sermanni back in the NWSL. I think that's not back in the NWSL, but like coaching again in the NWSL. I think that he's a great coach, and so I think it'll be interesting to see what he does with the team that he can kind of be with from the beginning. I know he said that that's something that drew him to wanting to coach Orlando because it's very rare you get to be a part of something from the start of it. I agree. I have my own little Alex Morgan comment in a second when I'm talking about trades and stuff like that. But, and I get what you're saying about Portland. Like, not to make it sound a certain way, but like when you have a place that has such a soccer culture and you see the support that Orlando City has, and just that general like soccer culture down there, and then see how they're reacting to the women's team and things like that. They're going to have that support, and hopefully that will translate into like high attendance numbers and things like that, as it has in Portland. And you hope that that's the case. I do have a slight. I mean, until we start seeing attendance numbers, the fact that they're going to, and this can't really be helped because the fact they're going to be playing at the Citrus Bowl until until like the Orlando Stadium is done is, I don't want to say concerning, but even if you put in numbers like the Thorns can get, that's a big old place for an NWSL team.
70,000, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And so around there. So for me, if I'm people who are like maybe just being new to the NWSL, or maybe like, oh, I'm not, or like Orlando has a team, yay. And like if you're not going, or if you're just kind of looking at that and you're like, you know, watching the game on like stream or TV and you're like, there's no people there. I mean, there could be great, but like that any number of people in 70,000 stadium is like, ooh, that looks, and you know what I mean? And like, so that's not, I guess not that much of a concern, but like, again, for people who are kind of just tuning in, just like that, the visual of that is kind of like, ooh, they're going to be playing and they're going to be playing NWSL in a 70,000 person stadium. Okay, great. Kind of like the time that like when Boston played at Harvard Stadium, I think 2 years ago, and you were like, oh God, that's a huge freaking place, and that's not even, I don't think that's not even a 70,000 person venue, but still, we're like, oh my God, that's crazy. But I do like the fact that it balances out the schedule. I think it'll be interesting, like player pool wise, to see. I think it's hard because we see so many people retire in off seasons because of like the wage issue and things like that, and then we're adding team and we're like, you know, player pool wise, it's kind of like, well, okay. And Jeff Plush on the media call for like the announcer Orlando City had mentioned like wanting in the future to expand by 2 teams at a time in order to have a balanced schedule. But also noted that concern on like the player pool as far as, you know, do we have the player, like what stress that will put on the player pool. And I feel like even Orlando, it'll be interesting to see, like I said, well, we'll talk more about this Monday because we'll have seen protected lists and things like that by then. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. But I think, like I said, you know, like you guys have said, the fact that we've made it past year 3 and are expanding, I think, is a great sign. No matter what our personal thoughts on Orlando City are.
Quick note on the Citrus Bowl. Like,
yes.
It is huge. It fits a ton of people, but it doesn't feel huge, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to go watch Orlando City there, and no offense, Orlando, I know where they're getting a new stadium. Because that place is really rough. So I don't know necessarily that it'll have too much of an impact depending on who they get to do their camera work. And that sounds very strange, but it feels like a much smaller venue than it is. So that might actually work in the league's favor a little bit.
Good to know. Like I said, I'm not overly familiar with the venue, so that's just my initial thought when I hear that is like, oh dear God. But that's fine. Moving on, just some thoughts. We'll go with Danielle. Thoughts on any of the waived players? We found out the only player who actually got picked up was Brittany Bach by Chicago, but do you have any thoughts on just the list of players who were waived and such?
Well, I think I got a couple thoughts. One, Bach is so talented, and she's been plagued with injuries. I just hopefully she can stay healthy because I think she's just an amazing player in this league. So I was really excited that Chicago picked her up. Being a Kansas City fan, kind of this is a convoluted way to get into it, but Jordan Jackson, seeing her get waived, I would have loved to see her get picked up by a team. In fact, I heard speculation maybe Orlando would pick her up. She's so young. She's so talented. I think she could have been great to like build a midfield with for Orlando. I'm wondering if KC will sign her as a free agent since she is from Overland Park, Kansas, and we love local players at FCKC, but I was really surprised. Hopefully she'll get picked up by a team. And then I think, what was it, yesterday or today, the Ella Masser news started getting. I think we were all surprised to see her on the list, and now she's going to Europe probably. Who knows? She's being coy about it. And, yeah, that was a surprise, seeing Ella on that list.
I think, and I thought so at first too, and I was super confused. And then I started looking back at posts, and I was like, she never said she was retiring. Yeah. She never used the word retired. She very just said moving on. She said moving on from the dash. I mean, I think it's very clear she is going to Europe. I know it's been reported. I think that they're not able. I feel like things with the Europe teams sometimes take a while to get finalized and like official and all that. And so I don't think I think it's just, I don't know that I think some of it she's purposely trying to be coy, and I think some of it is they can't say anything until it's finalized and things like that, just because, of how all that works. But I, for one, am sad to see her leave NWSL because I love watching her play on that level. But I'm glad that she's not retiring because she had such a good year with, probably one of the best years. She had a lot of injuries, in 2014 season, and then I think this year she played really, really well. So I'm actually really glad she's not retiring. I just wish she was staying in the league, although I do understand the decision to go overseas. And then we'll go over to Jen. Any trades in the offseason that you'd like to see? Or I guess we'll go there now, and then I'll throw it back. We'll end on, if anyone has comments on this, Alex Morgan, Orlando trade thing. But any other trades that you'd like to see in the offseason, Jen?
Well, I expect to see Ashlyn Harris go. I think everybody does at this point. I would not be at all shocked if Gabara just let her walk during the expansion draft. And
which I don't think is smart, but that's a whole other thing. That's fine.
I don't either, because knowing how badly Orlando wants her, I would hold her for trades.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm not coaching them. If I was, that's what I would do. Nudge, nudge, Gabara. There you go. Hold that thought.
All right. So I'll just jump right in there and comment just quick on Ashlyn Harris real quickly. I think I agree. I don't. The smart thing would be, even though it might make her angry in the interim, I think that protecting her in the draft would be a smart life choice, just because then you have to have Orlando trade something for her, which I think they would, because she's been such a supporter of having a team down there, and it would be such a draw to have people down there. Will they or not? I don't know. I'm hearing that she's going to be left unprotected most likely, but if I'm Jim Gabar, I make Orlando City give them something, because they're just handing out things left and right to get people who they think can be marketable folks. So, but that's just me. Sorry, Jen. We'll kick it back over to you real quick, and then we'll go to Danielle.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still at work.
No worries.
Yeah. So, as far as beyond Ashlyn Harris, I think maybe the fact that the coaches around the league have shifted so much, there's going to be some player shifting too. Just because every coach has their favorites around the league, and they're all going to try to build what they visualize as their ideal team. So I do expect to see some shifting from that standpoint as well. And I always hope to see Tobin move. One of these days it's actually going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I always hope for it. I don't like her being in Portland, so she needs to get out of there, even though they have Mark Parsons now, which still breaks my heart. But yeah, that's my thoughts on trading.
Danielle, you look like you wanted to jump in and say something. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I was trying to help out. My only thing with trades this off-season, I hate off-season trades. I worry, because especially after last year when FCKC gave up Merritt Mathias for nothing after Kate Dinas retired, which was fun. My only hopes and wants for off-season trades is for teams to stop unnecessarily including Seattle. Somehow Laura Harvey gets in on these trades when she doesn't need to. Well, there's no need to involve Seattle, but she's so great that she gets in, and they get so much out of these trades when they could have just been one-on-one. So that's my only hope as a non-Seattle fan, is we quit just giving things to Seattle. Quit including them just for fun.
And somehow she got included on this whole Alex Morgan thing too. This is by the way, this is my rant. This is gonna be my rant, and then you guys can comment on the Morgan thing, and we'll just end on that. But I get it from a non-strictly soccer playing perspective. I get it. Alex Morgan's a huge old name that every time she goes everywhere, all the little people yelling Alex Morgan, Alex Morgan, Alex Morgan. People will go to see Alex Morgan. I get it. It drives me crazy. It hurts my ears and makes me sad. Just because that sometimes people will show up to, it doesn't matter who's playing, and they have all their Alex Morgan gear on, and that's fine. She's a very marketable player. I get why you want her on your team. Okay, Orlando, I get you from that perspective. She will put people in the seats. You can market around her. I understand that. from a soccer perspective, they're nuts. Orlando City's crazy because they gave up so much, way too much for Alex Morgan. Like, that's insane to me. Like, just looking at that. And especially, like, Alex Morgan, who's been injury-plagued, who missed a whole lot of action, injury-plagued. Her return from injury hasn't been super great. She has been kind of struggling, getting back to real true form, scoring goals, things like that. Which I don't doubt will probably get better if she can not be injured again. But to give all the things that they gave is just crazy to me. But I get it from a marketing standpoint, but from someone who also just like thinks from a soccer perspective, I'm just like, oh God, that's insane. And then Laura Harvey's still involved somehow because Klingenberg is going to Seattle for, I don't think we know what the other part of that exchange is, but like is going to Seattle, is being left unprotected. I don't really know why, again, like you said, that she had to be involved, why Seattle had to be involved. I just got real confused of what was going on with that. But that's just my rant. And also, and this is, people are going to get mad at me about this, but I understand, like, being apart from your significant other is a struggle, but it's still just kind of when people want to go somewhere because of their, like, husband, things like that, like, that still kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I'm not going to get too much into it because that's, like, their own personal life, and I don't like to talk about people's personal life, but I understand, like, Carly Lloyd mentioned it when she was mad about being traded to the Flash, that, you know, they're not making millions of dollars in the NWSL, and that they should be able to have some say of where they play because of that, but I don't know, like that being like Portland saying like, oh, we wouldn't have let her go except that she asked for it because to be with her husband. Like, I don't know. I just think I get it. Part of me gets it, but again, if you're mixing like too much personal stuff in with, you know, and the same thing happened like and it backfired in some cases. Sydney Leroux, you know, we know last year asked to be traded to Kansas City specifically, and Laura Harvey went, nope, I don't. You want to be traded to Kansas City. We don't want someone here who doesn't want to play here. So you're going to New York instead. And then she didn't really end up playing at all because she got hurt and all that stuff. But but clearly didn't want to be in Western New York either. So that's just my opinion. People are going to either agree with me or be mad at me about it. Like, it's fine, whatever. But that still is just one of those things that kind of rubs me the wrong way too. And it's like, I want to go for X person, and I'm kind of just like, like part of me gets it, but it's just like, you're a professional athlete also, so meh. Any thoughts on this whole Orlando City Alex Morgan thing? Either of you jump in if you do.
I mean, I think that you're right. They gave up a lot for Alex Morgan, and I know so many Portland fans who weren't sad to see her go because of the injuries and stuff like that. And I agree with you. I don't like the trades to be with your significant other. You know, I actually used to use Alex as an example of how to do it right. You know, because I really feel like Sydney Leroux is going to end up at KC. And I could rant a whole show worth of stuff about that because she doesn't fit in jersey, blah, blah, blah. I won't get into it because I don't want people to get mad at me. So I used to use Alex as an example of, look, they've been together since college. They're playing separate cities. I get it, but it's rough to demand, especially when the female's asking to be traded when they're the superstar. I have a lot of opinions, and people probably don't like any of my opinions, so I'll stop there.
Jen, any thoughts on this whole Alex Morgan to Orlando thing and all the stuff that goes along with it?
I have lots of thoughts. My first thought, being the very large, obnoxious Star Wars fan that I am, I'm pretty sure that Mark Parsons is secretly a Sith Lord. I'm 99% sure that by the end of the season, his entire team will know him as Darth Parsons. So I think he's building himself a little empire in Portland, and he has the talent to do it, and he has the talent as a coach to do it. He was scary in Washington. Like, he took this little band of misfits and made them this incredible team that, you know, really stood a chance. So for me, I think Mark Parsons is just slowly building his empire in Portland, and this was the perfect opportunity for him to get that stepping stone to do it. You know, Alex Morgan, no offense to all the little teenagers watching this show right now that are going to throw things at me. You know, she's not the best option when you're really looking for tactical ability because she is injury prone. That's nothing against her, it's just the way it is. And so what I think happened there was that Mark got this whole big thing going with this Alex Morgan trade and got all of this stuff from Orlando, and then he and Laura Harvey sat down for some tea and biscuits, and that's how Kling got involved. That's my theory. That's what I'm going to stick to. Yeah, so there's that. As far as Alex and the whole significant other thing, like, I get it. It does suck being away from your significant other, but at the same point, like, a good significant other is going to support you no matter where you're at. So, and they have been. Like, they have been able to support one another. They have played in separate cities. They've been able to do their own thing. They've been able to kind of build themselves as professional athletes. And I feel like maybe Morgan's sacrificing a lot of that now, and that's unfortunate from the female perspective because a lot of times it is the female that has to make those sacrifices because they're kind of, you know, Carrasco can't get pregnant. So, you know, the female does have to make a lot of those kind of homebody moves and a lot of those sacrifices, and it's really unfortunate. And maybe this is a shift of going from Alex Morgan, the professional athlete, to Alex Morgan, the family woman. And I think the upcoming years will show that for sure. But in the meantime, you know, it does suck to have to watch somebody kind of design their career around someone else.
All right, and that's all said. You know, like I said, I don't like talking about people's personal lives, but it is obviously effective. Like it clearly has affected this league in the sense that this is why all this is happening. So, for anyone who's going to be out there and be like, it's her personal life, blah blah. Again, yes, but it's affecting all these movements and trades and all this stuff. So, you know, it's a thing. But thanks for hanging in with us, everyone. We went a little longer than I thought we would tonight, but there's a lot to talk about and excitement. So, any final thoughts from either one of you down there?
I won't go into rant because we don't have time, but something real quick. When we were talking about having defensive mids and how Tobin couldn't fill that, it goes right back to the fact that we never developed one. So that was my little note thing. Mm-hmm. So we can go back to the Jen Buzzkowskis of the world. Yeah. So I had written a note during the show about that.
There will be more time for ranting on Monday. So if you have that or any other rant that you develop in the next couple of days, or you have it, save it, because we have, you know, not so much as packed of a show on Monday. So save any rants that are applicable. I'm sure they'll still be applicable. We'll get to them on Monday. I cheated. I had half ranted, but it was relevant and on the agenda anyways, kind of, and related to Orlando. So that was a little bit of a cheat on my part. But thanks for hanging out, everyone. We're going to be back. Don't forget, U.S. national team versus Brazil from Orlando. I can't talk. It's late-ish. It's not at 7:30. It's fine. 3 o'clock Eastern time, Fox Sports 1, I believe. 2:30 is the pregame show. We're back on Monday, 6:30 Eastern time, to talk about that show. We'll talk about that show. Talk about that game. Talk about that game against Brazil. We'll be talking about the protected and unprotected, assuming that list still comes out when it's supposed to on Monday. We'll be talking about that and some other NWSL goodies. But thanks for watching another episode of Off the Post, and we'll see you on Monday. Wave, everyone. We'll still do the waving. Catch y'all Monday.